Today we're talking about seriously overlooked British films set in Edwardian era, some finished decades after the author's death, some nearly derailed by the Queen's own screening room, and one where Alec Guinness murders himself 8 times. Just great cinema that deserves a second look. Europe is on edge, war could break out any minute, and right in the middle you've got Diana Rigg playing an ambitious reporter chasing Oliver Reed, who's the head of an assassination cartel. Telly Savalas is lurking around as a newspaper baron keeping an eye on things. It's based on a Jack London novel, unfinished by London himself, finished decades later by crime writer Robert L. Fish. It's playful, it's quirky, doesn't take itself seriously at all. Definitely inspired by earlier star-packed hits like Those Magnificent Men in Their Flying Machines. And you've even got characters inspired by real history. Edward VII shows up briefly, played for laughs. Not exactly a masterpiece, but it's clever, subversive, and pretty entertaining. This one's an absolute classic. The story follows 3 siblings who suddenly have their lives flipped upside down when their dad gets arrested, accused of spying actually, and they move from their nice home to a remote village in Yorkshire. Jenny Agutter stars as Bobby. This role basically defined her career. She's fantastic, and everyone remembers that famous ending with her at the train station, steam everywhere, super emotional reunion. But really, it's not just her, it's the whole cast, Sally Thompson, Gary Warren, and especially Bernard Cribbins as a friendly porter who kinda takes care of the kids. It's romanticized, sure, and super nostalgic, but it works. There's always something going on. Russian exiles, train disasters, birthday surprises. Honestly, it doesn't matter that it's sentimental. It's the kind of movie where that's exactly the point. Set during the Boer War, it's all about these 3 Australian soldiers put on trial for killing prisoners, something their commanders basically told them to do, but now they're scapegoats. Jack Thompson plays the lawyer trying desperately to defend these guys, but it's clear from the start they're not getting a fair shot. The comparisons to Paths of Glory are obvious, but this movie stands on its own, made for less than $1 million and ended up as one of Australia's key new wave films. Got nominated for an Oscar, won prizes at Cannes, and Prince Charles himself admired it enough to arrange a special Buckingham Palace screening for the Queen. Okay, back to something cozy. The Wind in the Willows. Sure, everyone remembers Disney's cartoon version from the late 40s, but this 1983 stop-motion version from Cosgrove Hall is something special. It captures Kenneth Grahame's original vibe better than almost anything. You've got Mole, Rat, Badger, and Toad perfectly brought to life with these handmade models based on E.H. Shepard and Arthur Rackham's famous illustrations. Voice cast is spot on too. Ian Carmichael, Michael Hordern, David Jason, they're all great. The film sparked a whole TV series later on, and there have been plenty of other adaptations. Even Guillermo del Toro almost made one. But Disney wanted a skateboarding Toad, so that fell apart. Still, if you want a definitive Wind in the Willows, this 1983 version is the one to watch. E.M. Forster's classic novel, made into a film that basically changed the game for British period dramas. Helena Bonham Carter stars as Lucy Honeychurch, traveling through Florence and torn between Daniel Day-Lewis, playing her uptight fiancé, and Julian Sands, who's the exact opposite. Spontaneous, passionate, a little rough around the edges. Shot on a pretty tight budget, under $3 million, and made more than $60 million at the box office. Won a few Oscars too. It gets made fun of sometimes now for being too picture postcard pretty, too stiff, full of fancy British actors like Maggie Smith and Judi Dench doing their usual thing. But honestly, if you actually watch it, there's a lot going on beneath the surface. Sharp commentary on class, gender, art, English manners, you name it. Definitely worth revisiting if it's been a while. Here's a quirky one, and definitely one of the strangest Edwardian gems you'll find. The whole idea is you've got this stuffy English clergyman played by Sam Neill, who, after a couple glasses of some rare Hungarian wine, starts talking about his past life as a Welsh spaniel. Yep, a dog reincarnated as a priest. Sounds totally bizarre, but stay with me, because it works. Jeremy Northam plays a guy dealing with some heavy family grief, trying to reconnect with his distant dad, who's played by Peter O'Toole. They end up stumbling into this whole reincarnation thing after attending a lecture on souls by Art Malick's character. It's based on a really obscure novella from the 30s called My Talks with Dean Spanley. Director Toe Fraser pulls this weird story together beautifully. It's funny, it's moving, and somehow genuinely profound. The movie captures that Edwardian vibe perfectly. Gorgeous cinematography, detailed sets, everything feels right. Sam Neill is great. Peter O'Toole is Peter O'Toole, so he's obviously great, and it manages to say some pretty insightful things about family, loss, and life. This was actually the first Sherlock Holmes film to seriously stick to the original setting. It's based on one of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's most famous stories, the one with a giant killer dog terrorizing a rich family out on the English moors. It was also the very first time Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce teamed up as Holmes and Watson, and that alone made it legendary. The production is great, it's atmospheric, although if we're being honest, sometimes you can totally tell they're filming on a studio lot instead of the actual Dartmoor. But even with those little quirks, this one totally holds up. Rathbone basically became Holmes in people's minds after this movie. Next up, we've got Major Barbara, adapted straight from George Bernard Shaw's play. It's 1941, and Shaw himself actually worked on this screenplay. He even hung around the set, bossing everyone around. It's about a young woman named Barbara, a major in the Salvation Army, whose father happens to be a weapons manufacturer. Lots of tension, lots of ideas about morality, pacifism, and war profiteering. Shaw was basically famous for turning plays into political debates, but this one clicked with people who were dealing with actual war at the time. The movie was shot right in the middle of World War II, so they couldn't exactly build huge fancy sets, but they still managed some incredible work, especially in the arms factory scenes. David Lean handled a lot of the cinematography and editing, even though he wasn't officially credited. Wendy Hiller, Robert Morley, Rex Harrison, they're all fantastic. And Shaw, who wasn't exactly shy, said storytelling was a skill only a few people had, and he was one of them. Well, arrogant or not, he was right. This movie still works today. Now, one of my all-time favorites, Kind Hearts and Coronets from '49. This is easily one of the darkest, sharpest British comedies ever made. It's about a guy named Louis Mazzini, played by Dennis Price, who's out to inherit a dukedom. To do it, he's got to eliminate 8 members of his aristocratic family. The twist? Alec Guinness plays almost every single one of the doomed family members. Men, women, young, old. He does it all, and he's hilarious. It's based on a pretty controversial book from 1907 that had some dicey politics, but the filmmakers wisely toned that down. Instead, they dialed up the comedy, irony, and biting satire about class and society. Beautifully shot, great costumes, smart writing. It's like an Edwardian crime comedy noir, if that makes sense. Dennis Price is fantastic as the snobby murderer. Alec Guinness is again genius, and director Robert Hamer completely nails that twisted, macabre tone. Funny, clever, and just dark enough. Still brilliant. Alright, last one for today, Mary Poppins. Honestly, how can you not talk about Mary Poppins? Disney famously chased after P.L. Travers for years, begging for the rights to her stories. When he finally got them, she absolutely hated what he did, especially mixing live action with animation and setting everything in 1910. But Disney knew exactly what he was doing. Julie Andrews completely owns the role, no question. Sure, we can all joke about Dick Van Dyke's terrible Cockney accent, and yeah, some parts maybe sugarcoat life a little too much, but the whole movie is just pure imagination and charm. It absolutely cleaned up at the Oscars. Disney originally considered actresses like Bette Davis or Angela Lansbury for Mary, but can you even imagine anyone but Julie Andrews in this role? It's magical, it's timeless, and despite what Travers thought, it still works. Everybody loves Mary Poppins, and for good reason.